Here's a sentence that should stop you in your tracks. The New York Times editorial board, not a columnist, the entire editorial board published a piece this week with the headline, "President Trump lost this war." And the wild part? Republicans are saying the same thing. Not Democrats. Not the mainstream media that Trump has spent years calling the enemy of the people. His own party. His own senators. The people who voted for him, who defended him, who went on television week after week to explain why this war was necessary and justified and going to end in American victory. They're looking at this deal, the one Trump is calling a massive win, the one J.D. Vance is doing media tours to defend, and they're using words like surrender, blunder, and disgraceful. Let's start with the deal itself, because the chaos around it is almost designed to make you give up trying to understand it. And that confusion? That benefits exactly one group of people. So let's cut through it. The Memorandum of Understanding, signed Wednesday at Versailles at a wine reception, on the sidelines of the G7. Let's not forget that detail commits the United States to some things that should make every American's jaw drop. First, the U.S. will lift all sanctions on Iran's fossil fuel industry immediately. All of them. Iran can sell oil again, right now, full speed. Second, the U.S. commits, with regional partners, to develop a plan worth, and this is in the actual signed document. This is not spin at least $300 billion for the reconstruction and economic development of the Islamic Republic of Iran. $300 billion for Iran. For a country we just spent 3.5 months bombing. Now here's where it gets almost comically chaotic. J.D. Vance went on CBS News and confirmed it. That's the sort of thing they could have access to, he said, funded by the Gulf Coast Coalition, so long as they honor their end of the obligation. Hours later, same day, Trump went on Truth Social and said the $300 billion figure is fake news, put out by the Democrats. Called it propaganda. Denied it completely. So the vice president confirmed it. The president denied it. And the actual signed document which Bloomberg, CNN, and other outlets obtained drafts of has it in writing. It's right there. At least $300 billion. Those are the words in the memorandum that Trump himself signed. You can't make this up. And what did we actually get in return? What did America win from a war that killed 13 of our soldiers, wounded 348 more, cost over $100 billion, disrupted global oil markets for months, and got a civilian water reservoir bombed in potential violation of international law? Let's go through Trump's own stated war aims one by one, because Senator Peter Welch of Vermont did exactly this on camera, and the answer is brutal. Regime change in Iran? Failure. Iran's missile program eliminated? Failure. Iran's nuclear program ended? Failure, the Moo says again. These are the actual words. Iran will maintain the current status quo of its nuclear program. Maintain the current status quo. The nuclear program that Trump spent years saying was an existential threat, the thing he cited as the reason for launching this war in the first place, gets to stay exactly where it is. Current status quo. Those are the words he signed his name next to. Sen. Bill Cassidy of Louisiana, a Republican, a Trump ally, posted online this week that this is the worst foreign policy blunder in decades. He said Iran's nuclear ambitions were not curbed, that Iran has now learned threatening the Strait of Hormuz works and will do it again, and that under this deal, Iran gets to build brand new infrastructure. Ronald Reagan is rolling over in his grave, he wrote. Sen. Tom Tillis of North Carolina, also a Republican, said the memorandum falls short given the costs of the conflict and that it's doomed to fail because Congress had no oversight role in crafting it. Sen. Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut, a Democrat, put it most directly, Trump wanted unconditional surrender. And this deal looks like unconditional surrender by the United States, not by Iran. Let that land. A Democratic senator is saying out loud what a lot of Republican senators are thinking, but are too afraid of the base to say publicly. America surrendered, not Iran. Now, the Fox News side of this is almost equally remarkable because it shows you how total the collapse of support is. Mark Thiessen, a conservative columnist, a Bush administration speechwriter, someone who has spent his career advocating for exactly this kind of confrontational foreign policy toward Iran, compared the $300 billion reconstruction fund to offering the Marshall Plan to rebuild Germany while the Nazis were still in power. Fox anchor Bill Hemmer called the situation precarious and raised the specter of America getting suckered back into a long, stalemated negotiation, the same kind of slow, grinding process that Iran has used for decades to buy time for its nuclear program while the world argued in conference rooms. And here's the part that nobody is connecting enough dots on. In 2015, Trump spent months savaging Barack Obama's Iran nuclear deal, the JCPOA. He called it a horrible, disgusting, absolutely incompetent deal. He said Iran got $150 billion under it. He called Iran a terrorist nation. He tore up that deal in 2018, his first term, saying America would never accept a deal where Iran kept any nuclear enrichment capability whatsoever. Never. That was the line. Full dismantlement or nothing. Now look at what he just signed. Iran keeps its nuclear program at current status quo. Iran gets sanctions relief on its oil industry immediately. Iran potentially gets access to $300 billion in reconstruction funds, which J.D. Vance confirmed even as Trump denied it. Iran's missile program wasn't touched, and Trump is calling this a historic victory. Sen. Lindsey Graham, who just last week said the way Iran describes the deal sounds awful, put his finger on the deepest irony. If they can enrich it anywhere at all, then it's the same as JCPOA. The same deal Trump spent years destroying. The same deal he called the worst in history. He just signed a version of it, and gave Iran more money in the process. Then, and I genuinely could not believe this when I read it hours after signing this deal at Versailles, Trump shared a Truth Social post from someone calling themselves presidential historian Dave King, which described Trump as, without question, the most powerful man that the planet has ever known by a long way, and favorably compared him to, and I'm not making this up, Adolf Hitler. Attila the Hun and other historical figures the post called murderous leaders. Trump shared this hours after signing an international agreement. The White House has not explained it. Here's the bottom line, and I want you to really sit with this because it matters beyond politics. 13 American families lost someone in this war. Not a number, not a statistic. 13 actual human beings who woke up one morning and put on a uniform and didn't come home, because their commander-in-chief launched a war he promised would be over in 6 weeks, spent $100 billion prosecuting it over 3.5 months, and ended it with a deal that his own vice president and his own senators are struggling to defend, that leaves Iran's nuclear program intact. That potentially sends $300 billion in reconstruction money to the country he said was an existential threat, and that he announced from a wine party in France before sharing a post comparing himself to Hitler. Is this what winning looks like? Is this what $100 billion and 13 lives bought? The Washington Post's David Ignatius, a foreign policy columnist who has covered this region for decades, called it plainly an exit ramp from a costly and unpopular war, not a victory parade. You deserve leaders who tell you the truth. You deserve a foreign policy that makes America genuinely safer instead of one that's reverse-engineered to produce a signing ceremony photo. And you deserve a press corps that doesn't let a wine party in Versailles and a Truth Social post distract from the very simple math. Trump went in promising total victory, spent 100 days and $100 billion and 13 American lives, and came out with a deal his own party is calling a surrender. Don't let them call this winning. Don't let them move on to the next news cycle before you've fully absorbed what just happened. 13 families are going to be living with the cost of this war forever. The least the rest of us can do is pay attention long enough to demand honest answers about what it was actually for. Share this if you think the American people deserve the full truth about this deal. Drop a comment. Do you think this was a win or a surrender? Because right now, even the people who voted for it can't seem to agree.